First of all, on credit. Don't mystify credit.
On Friday, July 5th, Lyndon LaRouche delivered a blockbuster live webcast, now prominently featured on the LaRouchePAC site for mass circulation, in which he fielded a number of questions, the answers to which all political and concerned patriots must study closely. In a meeting with associates this weekend, Mr. LaRouche had the following comments regarding the significance of Friday's webcast.
Is that we raised the questions last night, which are the only crucial questions which we have to consider now. Everything else is more or less a second-hand something or other, or a version which is not relevant to the immediate issues before us. This included the question of the Egypt crisis and other things as well. So there has to be a shift at this point to get just what happened to fall in my lap as questions yesterday has to be treated now as being the determining questions to which everyone has to answer in their own mind to get this thing right.
Depositors formed long lines.
What LaRouche said during Friday's webcast is what every other so-called leading political figure, particularly in the United States and Europe, has been afraid to say, that the roiling crises across the planet, both financial and strategic, are not a series of accidents or poor circumstances, but the intentional effects of an imperial system, typified in part by supranational financial interests who will stop at nothing to maintain their outdated system of feudalism, even if that means drastically lowering the world's population to a so-called manageable 1 billion people, which is exactly what the current system today is doing. And if it were not for the steadfast efforts of Mr. LaRouche, LaRouchePAC, and our international associates, the halls of the U.S. Congress, the public events of the EU parliamentarians, and the public generally would be left to the rumors of these supranational interests who, working around the clock, are intimidating elected leaders into sacrificing their populations for the stability of the system. In what we intend to become a new weekly feature on LaRouchePAC.com, we will now take a tour of the battleground where LaRouchePAC and our international co-thinkers take on the outmoded yet deadly system of empire by providing ambitious yet absolutely necessary policy alternatives for the entire planet and beyond. We begin in San Francisco, where the Schiller Institute, founded by LaRouche's wife Helga Zepp-LaRouche, hosted the fifth in a series of conferences titled The New Paradigm for Mankind, the Second American Revolution, where conference presentations from all over the world demonstrated that the American Revolution is alive and well and is today a global phenomenon.
Which is a new economic system globally for mankind, and perhaps for the first time consolidating a truly human culture and renaissance for the world.
LaRouche has emphasized repeatedly that we must restore not only the vision but the way of thinking itself of these great minds, people like Cusa and Leibniz and LaRouche, who saw the future, acted to destroy empire, and created this city on the hill, which is ours to lose or to recreate anew.
Some of our people. And that revival of that kind of imagination, of creative imagination, is the one thing which can promise us the kind of future we can now see that a simple action by us could do for the United States. Glass-Steagall will save the United States.
Our country is in deep economic peril, and my concern is that if we do not show some strength by reinstating Glass-Steagall, then our country will be headed for trouble.
We don't need the British oligarchy breaking everybody down into little compartments and manipulating everybody and keeping everybody in poverty and starting wars and all that foolishness. We need economic development for the benefit of mankind.
We call on the members of the International LaRouche movement. We call on the citizens of the United States of America. And we call on the leaders of the United States of America to do everything that it takes to implement, reinstitute the Glass-Steagall Act as a primary and necessary step towards saving not just America, not just the Philippines, but the rest of the world.
The political and economic systems which have been dominated by financial oligarchs over the last several hundred years have failed all peoples around the world.
Our movement has survived and grown for two reasons. Because we are animated by the universal principles espoused by Lyndon LaRouche and Helga Zepp LaRouche, and because we have relentlessly attacked the British Crown.
For the true interest of any one nation can never be at odds with the interests of the whole world.
To achieve these goals, we must defeat the British Crown.
In your mind, ban biofuels. And under those corn and soy growers, overnight, put a floor price, a parity price, to keep their situation stable. That's our food supply. Do the same for every sector. Get the dairy sector out here in California and everywhere here and abroad, a price that's stable. That is security. We can do this. We can bust up the cartels. We can end the Monsanto seed control of science. It's controlling the means to life. We can answer the prayer.
Therefore, that leaves a very special responsibility to you, to the American people, and to the US Congress, because they are the representatives of exactly this representative system. So let's organize a passionate campaign to say what we used to say in 1945, never again. I appeal to you, the American people, to once again save the world from fascism. We have a world drama, but it does not take place on a stage. It's real history. And we, our organization, are the main actors. So let's make sure it does not end as a tragedy, but that it is the beginning of a new paradigm, of a second American Revolution and a new renaissance for all of mankind.
Simultaneous with the San Francisco event, Barack Obama, the president our Congress has so far failed to impeach, was on the last leg of his $100 million Africa trip, which was not met with the kind of fanfare which he had probably expected when he set out, particularly in South Africa, and with good reason. In a speech given at the University of Johannesburg, Soweto, Obama made it clear that he has no intent to deviate from the empire's policy of population reduction in the name of green.
Our efforts to reduce our carbon emissions, and we're setting a goal to meet the agreements that we had both in Copenhagen and in Durban for advanced countries that have a big carbon footprint. But let me make one last point. The United States cannot do it by itself. And the biggest emitter of carbon right now is China. They still have a much lower carbon footprint per person than the United States. But because they have so many people, it's going up rapidly. And Chinese leaders understand this. The same thing that's sending all the carbon into the atmosphere is also making it difficult to breathe in Beijing. So they recognize they've got to come up with a new development model. India is going to have to come up with new development models. Africa, we're going to all have to work together to find ways in which collectively we reduce carbon, but we make sure that there's some differentiation so that countries that are very wealthy are expected to do more, and countries that are still developing, obviously they shouldn't be resigned to poverty simply because, the West and Europe and America got there first. That wouldn't be fair. But everybody's going to have to do something. Ultimately, if you think about all the youth that everybody's mentioned here in Africa, if everybody's raising living standards to the point where everybody's got a car and everybody's got air conditioning and everybody's got a big house, well, the planet will boil over.
While Obama was rightly greeted by protests along the way, the dissent was not confined to the streets. Obama had expected the South African Parliament to convene so that he could give a speech to them. That did not happen. He expected the keys to the city for Cape Town. These were withheld. He expected to personally meet with Nelson Mandela. This was denied. And in a press conference with Obama, South African President Jacob Zuma pinned the fault for the war in Mali on what happened in Libya.
Solutions that are African-led will be able to yield results. The problems in the Sahel region arise primarily from the manner in which the UN Security Council handled the Libyan situation. There are lessons to be learned in the episode. We have talked about this in our meeting, Mr. President.
And of course, everyone knows that the UN Security Council means, in this case, the United States and Barack Obama. In the protests on the streets, the giant Obama stash banners displayed by the LaRouche movement of South Africa were a prominent feature, covered by the press internationally to the effect that it seemed as if there were thousands of us on the ground. Here is part of an interview with the head of the South African LaRouche movement who helped to lead the protests against Obama's visit.
The American people must know that we can defeat the imperialists. We can defeat the British. They must understand that President Obama and the other presidents like the Bushes were being used. President Obama is being used by the British. We shouldn't be scared. Cowards die 100 times before their death. We should stop being cowards. The people of America, especially the African Americans, must stop being cowards. They must stop being afraid of telling Obama that, Obama, you are a killer. They must stop saying that he's my black brother. I can't talk bad things against him. He's a killer, he's killing. If your brother is a killer, he's a killer. You must treat him as a killer. He's an enemy. He has changed. Take note. He can kill you. So stop him before he comes for you. You have the power to do that. Do not fail the founding fathers. The founding fathers had that word impeach in the Constitution, simply to say that when times like these arrive, impeach must be used. We are not merely saying impeach him because I hate him. No. It is what he's doing that qualifies him to be out of that office. If you don't do that, if you don't impeach him, you will have failed us. We are far on the other side of the ocean. Impeach him for us. By doing that, you'll be saving mankind, and you'll be saving yourself.
At this late date, almost everybody on the planet can tell you what LaRouche had said 4 years ago, that Obama is not his own man, and that he is being run by foreign powers. In the July 5th webcast, LaRouche reiterated the point: to remove Obama from office, the U.S. Congress, many of whom know this themselves, have to take on those powers that control the president. And that means reinstating Glass-Steagall, exactly as Franklin Roosevelt had originally designed it. This is the only pathway to peace and economic recovery. And it was the topic of a class given in Massachusetts the same weekend Obama was in South Africa by Michael Kirsch, author of a draft legislation to restore the National Bank of the United States and the NOAPA 21 special report. Kirsch delivered a 2-part class developing the principle and the history of the U.S. sovereign credit system, stating that the best way to defeat empire is to push for massive growth and development of national territories.
That took over after the Kennedy assassination. That's number one. Why the only way we're going to have a credit system, because you don't have credit unless you're able to commit to something and actualize something, is if we're going to cancel the collapse of our physical economy by these policies of depopulation. And frankly, that's one of the great demoralizations of all the political layers in the United States, is because why would you want to emit credit for rebuilding all of our dams and bridges and building something like NOAPA 21, which I'll show you in a minute, if all of the technologies that you need to build it are being outlawed because of for the reason that we're going to have global warming. All of their policies across the board are coming from the single intention to reduce the world population, and they're taking the reins. So once you do that, now you can commit ourselves to some future project, a big project, and we can have a credit system that allows you to build it. The Republicans and everybody else is going to lose this fight if they try to talk about the science of windmills versus nuclear power. I mentioned it, but it's a mistake. They're going to lose it if they talk about this is a war on coal because you're going to destroy jobs. You think they care? They don't. They're not. That's not going to stop it. The only thing that's going to stop the shutdown of the coal plants and the nuclear plants and the burning of our corn, which we calculated a couple of weeks ago is killing millions. It's already killed millions of people. Obama's already got 2 million deaths on his head from ethanol, from starvation around the world. The only thing is to say all of these policies are undeniably a depopulation strategy. And it's undeniable. Why? Because we have you on record saying it. All you guys say it, John Holdren and everybody else. How come the Republicans aren't bringing John Holdren out in the Congress and saying, haven't you been on record that you want to depopulate the planet down to like 1 billion people? Well, yes, Your Honor. Does that have anything to do with your windmill strategy? Come on. It's so easy, but people just don't do it. So that's one thing we have to do. Because, and I say it again, because you can't have a credit system unless you destroy that first. Because you can't make good on any emitted government-intended credit. You can't make good on anything if
you're not going to increase the productivity overall of the economy. So we have to make up for 50 years. So, I mean, we have to radically destroy the empire very quick by saying who they are and what they're intending to do.
And finally, this 4th of July, LaRouchePAC and collaborators of ours across the country brought the real-time battle to defeat the British Empire to celebrations in Washington, D.C., Houston, Texas, and throughout New Jersey, intersecting people from all over the country and the world. In Houston, LaRouchePAC organizers marched in a local parade joined by two-time Democratic nominee for the 22nd Congressional District, Keisha Rogers.
Next, we have the LaRouche Political Action Committee completing the American Revolution. And I think they're going to sing for us.
Keep the drug traffic going. Please help reduce the world's population.
The LaRouchePAC float was awarded first prize for Best Individual Entry for the second year in a row. Also on the ground this 4th of July was Diane Sare, candidate for New Jersey governor and collaborator of Lyndon LaRouche. Sare's campaign against Chris Christie has had national reverberations, as she also continues to make the point very few political leaders are willing to admit, that Christie's deadly fiscal austerity and privatization of state programs is, in effect, no different than the austerity coming out of the White House. One of Diane Sare's leading policy initiatives is the restoration of Glass-Steagall as well, reiterating that there is no compromising with an enemy that is out to kill you. This is a snapshot of just part of the work LaRouchePAC and our collaborators internationally are doing on a weekly basis. However, as Mr. LaRouche has stressed recently, that system of sovereign credit, which the future development of every nation depends on, and to which Glass-Steagall is merely a precursor for, is poorly understood throughout the world, including here in the United States. Again, we have featured LaRouche's remarks on the front page of the LaRouchePAC site and have made them available for study and for circulation. If you have questions, send them into info.larouchepac@gmail.com or call into our National Center at 800-929-7566. Get involved. Back us up. The world is watching.